The Democratic primary is not over, and there's a lot that can happen between now and November. But if Joe Biden is the nominee, I fear that this race might not be as easy as some in the DNC might think it will be. Here are 10 reasons that Trump just might whoop Joe Biden if he's the nominee. Brett, you ready?
This is 10, these are either reasons or ways that this could happen.
Things that should be factored in.
Right, yes. Okay, so one, I thought it was ways he could do it. That
sure,
varies
that's
throughout.
fine. That's fine.
One of the ways that Trump could defeat Biden is to not have to face him. And the way that that would happen is if Bernie Sanders got a time machine and went back to 1984-ish and started just giving out back rubs to the Democratic Party. Just started high-fiving, back rubbing, foot massaging the Democratic Party. Build those relationships. Because I talked to a former Democratic operative the other day who was like, listen, as much as, and they see it differently. They see the same thing differently. We see like, they don't like him, they hate him. He's just, they'll keep discriminating against Bernie Sanders. And the flip side of that, they say, the Democratic insiders that you're talking about have given their life to the party. And they see the history of this all as the party figuring out ways to win to help people. And Bernie, in their opinion, is outside going like, you're not doing enough, you're not doing enough. And so if Bernie Sanders simply harness time travel to go back in time and give out those back rubs and develop those relationships the way that Joe Biden has, I think he could win this thing.
Biden wouldn't even face him.
He wouldn't even face Trump. And he could win these things.
Okay, that's fine. My number 5 would be if a T-Rex eats Biden.
John is so mad with my answer.
The point you made was fine. The context you made it in was ridiculous.
I could give boring answers like you are about to.
I'm about to, yes.
Here goes.
I wish that my number 5 was not my number 5 after he said that, but I'll say one reason that I fear that Trump would beat Biden if he's the nominee is that all else being equal, presidents get reelected. Especially in the absence of incredible uncertainty. And yes, right now we are in the middle of a period of incredible uncertainty, but we don't know what it's gonna be like in August, September, and whatever month comes after that. So all else being equal, you need a reason to throw the current incumbent president out of the White House. And I fear that if people at that point believe that the economy is doing okay, if the stock market's doing well, even though that doesn't mean much for most people, generally, they are favored to win, and that's why having a candidate who doesn't necessarily provide a great argument for why we should change course, that scares me.
I'm coming around against this argument that the stock market doesn't mean much for most people, simply because union pensions are pegged to the performance of the stock market.
That's fine. Look, I don't think that makes up as big of a percentage of the population that would be concerned with that as in 50 years ago. But I get what you're saying.
When you're talking about voting blocks, things can be the way that the stock market is overrepresented in terms of how many people have a stock portfolio of their own. I think it's easy for unions to go to voters and say, listen, we need someone. And they say things like, we need someone like Joe Biden over Bernie Sanders because we want. And this is leadership saying it, but we need someone who's going to protect your pension by shepherding the stock market through.
Okay.
Number 4 for me is voters think it's a done deal. People don't show up because they look at the financial ruin of the coronavirus panic and bear market. They look at Donald Trump being an idiot. They look at Joe Biden being what are they looking for? A return to normal. Normal is boring. People like boring. They love, and when Joe Biden was giving his speech about what he wanted to do with coronavirus, I could just feel a bunch of boomers like warming their hands by the glow, like he's some kind of like easygoing hearth. And so, but there's something about a return to normalcy that is a desire for the mundane, and the mundane is not exciting. And so there's not a lot of excitement around that. Maybe people don't show up to vote, and yeah.
Okay, interesting. We might return to that topic. Mine is going to be.
I would just say also, sorry to interrupt, but that is one of the many factors in Hillary's loss to Trump is people saying it's gonna be a blowout, which could have kept some people, in addition to sexism and a bunch of other things, and like
some people might not have voted
and
because
stop telling me what to do. Kind of feels that people had going like, I just can't bring myself to vote for Hillary Clinton. I'm gonna stay home. She doesn't need me.
She doesn't need it, and maybe that doesn't sway a lot of people, but maybe sways 20,000 in a swing state or something like that.
The Swayze effect, I call it.
That is. I did not know that one. But yes, Swayze doesn't need me to watch his movie. It's going to be so popular. Oh, is that what it is?
I just made it up.
Okay, well, I like it.
Sure.
That's a good theory. That works for Marvel. Anyway, mine is going to be, one reason I think Trump could win is, maybe paradoxically, coronavirus or war with Iran or something crazy that the media would say, bad news for Trump to do something crazy and big and wild. The assumption with coronavirus has always been this is gonna hurt him. And look, I get it. If he's mangling the response, it seems like there should be a strike back. But if people are feeling really uncertain and scared, are they going to push for a massive change in the middle of that? I mean, we know in war they don't tend to do that. They don't change horses midstream or whatever. So what about with a war with Iran? Or what if we are just being absolutely hammered by coronavirus still? It might be you might make the case that he is partly responsible for the lack of a response, but people might not be looking for a huge change if they're still scared for their lives.
Yeah, it's weird because yesterday afternoon, our time, the United States carried out a military strike against Kataib Hezbollah, which in Iraq, backed by Iranian forces, and there was so much else going on. No one really paid attention to it.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I mean, that was the fear that we had a few months ago, and it feels like a few years ago because so much has happened since then. Then when we were on the brink of war with Iran after killing Soleimani, and everyone was afraid that this was the kind of thing Trump could orchestrate in order to retain power. Without COVID, I'm not sure about that, but I'm not sure about anything anymore. Neither is anyone.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
We'll see.
Like,
yeah, I see.
It could not work in the way everybody assumes.
Yeah. Number 3, Biden molecularly disintegrates and we don't develop some sort of molecular reintegration ray.
What about a chamber, some sort of test chamber?
I'm just saying.
You get the molecules in there.
If you have the technology, I will take this right off my list.
Could I molecularly disintegrate you right now?
But what I'm saying is a full-scale Joe Biden dementia meltdown. There is either a time during a debate, a moment during the debate, which can be harnessed, and I think it'll be difficult. But we have been saying it. It is boggling. It is mind-boggling that people rallied around Biden so hard, given the preponderance of evidence against his mental faculties, that he keeps just chucking us.
Yeah.
Here you go. Here's me not holding it together day in, day out. If that happens, I just don't see any way that he could beat Trump.
Okay. So now I like your metaphor.
There you go.
More than I did before.
Just hold tight. I'll get to a real thing.
Okay,
I just want the first line to be fun.
Okay, well that was fun. Mine will not be. My 3 is basically your 4, sort of. It's a little bit less. This is boring, so he probably doesn't need me because I think this is boring enough that he'll definitely win. I think it just might be too boring. I think he's not gonna inspire enthusiasm. He's not gonna drive new people to vote. I don't think he's gonna campaign vigorously because he hasn't been throughout this race. How does it work in recent elections when Democrats choose not to campaign in places that they could really use the boost? So I think in terms of his platform, inspiring people to come to the polls and vote. I think that in terms of his ability to campaign to do so, in terms of performances at debates to inspire people to vote, I think that all of those things that could theoretically provide the juice needed to win, I think that is gonna be almost entirely lacking. And I know that they think they're gonna get like a young VP or something to stand in for that. That can help, but I don't think that's the same as having someone like Bernie Sanders who inspires passion. And I don't think we're gonna have that.
It's so weird though, but like Biden didn't campaign in any of the places and still won. And part of me, I mean, I've been here, you've heard me talk for the last 8 months, a year during this thing. And the answer I got in the South was like, black people like him. And the answer I got in Michigan was, they're giving him credit for the auto bailout. Part of me is saying, nobody move.
Yeah.
Just get a Democrat back in the White House, nobody move. You're getting like a very weird bread at this point. Like after hoping, disappointment. Like you're getting a very weird version of me that I'm sure in 2 weeks I'll reevaluate. But for me, it's just like, nobody move.
So basically,
like him.
in the same way that you said none of his primary victories have had anything to do with him, perhaps his eventual victory could have nothing to do with him.
Exactly.
Maybe.
Number 2, coronavirus is somehow harnessed to spin gold. That was the fun line, John, that's driving you crazy, I'm noticing, during this entire top 10 list.
Okay,
sorry.
Rasputin, let's hear it.
Rumpelstiltskin, you mean?
Rumpelstiltskin, yes. One is made up, one is real.
You have two,
I mixed them up.
You crossed your dorkitudes.
I did.
But it has to do with the economy. Like, if somehow there's a miraculous like silver lining, then
you're mixing up the metaphors.
Mixing my metaphors. If there's some kind of economic silver lining to this, and somehow coronavirus is a black swan moment that creates a shift in our economy that somehow triggers a sustainable recovery, which has nothing to do with Trump, but that's something that might happen, but it's the economy, stupid. The economy has gotten quite stupid, and the bottom has fallen out of the stock market, which was his last remaining like things are fine statistic. That's the only thing I can think.
Yeah, it could be that we bottom out and then spend 2 months things moving up and people feel optimistic, even if we're still lower than we were today. Yeah, maybe. Also, I can't believe that I mixed up Rumpelstiltskin and Rasputin.
That's like me with
that is something.
Many Jedins died on our year-end special, which I still think about and punch myself.
That's more understandable. My number 2 was your number 3. Either Biden's actual mental situation, or more likely, how Trump will talk about his mental situation. And there will be 1 million Facebook posts that'll go out, and every person over 50 will start to believe the fake news they hear. But like, look, yes, he does say and do things that give me pause, and that will continue. That will be the baseline throughout the general election if he's the nominee. But on top of that will be, God only knows what people will come to think about it and what it represents. And I fear that that could become 30 to 50% of what people are thinking about during the election. And also, by the way, the reason that that's particularly bad in this general election is Trump is unstable, Trump is crazy. We should have the advantage in that area. But either in reality or in narrative, that advantage will be nullified by the time we get to early November.
My number 1 is someone forgets to lock the gate. There should be a gate around Joe Biden. There should be a cot, there should be a toilet, there should be, I don't know, whatever games he likes to play. A radio, a record player to keep on at night.
Yeah.
So yeah, a shuffleboard set up. Keep him away from everything. I mean,
this isn't even coronavirus related.
I'm not even, and tell him it's a coronavirus quarantine and he's doing the right thing and being sensible, but you cannot let Joe Biden go meet people and talk to voters ever. Never let him out, because it's debates is one thing, and that's the mental meltdown that I talked about before. But specifically letting him go and have unscripted moments with voters is the absolute wrong thing to do. And if someone allows him to do that, it will just create more and more momentum and ammunition for Trump to use against him.
Yeah, look, I think you're right, but I think that is damage control, but it itself represents a lack of campaigning and driving enthusiasm, as I talked about earlier. So damned if you do, damned if you don't campaign, I guess. My number 1 is going to be, it's the corruption, stupid. Again, another area that, like with mental health and stability, we should have a massive advantage in, either in reality or certainly in narrative. That advantage will be nullified, because you remember, like when we went through this whole impeachment thing, because Trump wanted to pitch Biden as being corrupt, involving Ukraine and Hunter Biden and all that stuff. Yeah, that mission is still going forward. You're gonna hear Hunter Biden 1 trillion times between now and November. And a lot of voters, that will be 25 to 35% of what they think about in this election. And when they think of Biden, they will think not of Joe Biden, not of Uncle Joe, but of Hunter Biden and corruption, international this, and what are they doing, and what will he do if he gets in the office? And Trump, who him and his family have profited so much, more than perhaps any other president, who are the most fundamentally corrupt people perhaps ever in American government in the last 75 years, it will seem like a wash in all of these areas where it can't be a wash in an important election where we need to take out this incumbent.
There you go.
And so those are 10 of our reasons. It's not everything, certainly. I'm sure there's something involving elves. I don't know. So feel free to post additional ones below.
What a dork!
Yeah.
He said
I'm mocking
elves.
you, but I'm the one whose first thing I thought of was elves. So anyway, you can let us know one of the reasons you think that Trump might end up beating Joe. But thank you for watching this.
Legolas did take down an enormous elephant.
That's true. Oh my God, they're gonna put Joe's face on the Oliphant, technically. For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.